This is also for all the devotees working with soul tools and all my disciples, which is more or less the same, at this point anyway, that you may have heard of a story. It takes place in, I believe, 1971. Srila Prabhupada went with his early disciples to a Kumbh Mela festival, and it was very, very cold, almost freezing, I believe. And so they would have to take a bath with water that was the same temperature as the air. And so very, very cold. And you know when it's really cold, you don't really even want to get out of your sleeping bag. And so what was happening is that the devotees weren't attending the morning program because it was so cold and austere. They didn't want to get up and bathe and so forth. But they had a morning program, they had kirtan, they had class. So when Prabhupada became aware of this, he started getting up at 3 o'clock. And Jamuna tells this story, and she could tell that Prabhupada wasn't well. He had a lot of mucus, which is kind of natural in that cold weather. You're living outside, you're just living in a tent. So Prabhupada got up at 3 o'clock, and he went out in the courtyard in front of everyone, where everyone could at least hear, or those who were up could see. And he would take this cold water, and he would take a bath. And then he would stay out there and chant, and then he would attend the whole morning program. So obviously, he was doing that as an example. And so you could say he was even risking his good health to make a point. And there's another example Prabhupada gave, that occasionally, when he became extremely ill, he wasn't able to give class. And so what he would do, he would actually go to class and he would sit on his Vyasasana. And then he would ask another devotee to give class. But he wanted to demonstrate that even he comes to class, even though he's not well enough to give class, he'll come to class and he'll listen. So he was showing by example the importance of sadhana. And in numerous letters, Prabhupada stressed, or you could say even begged us, to do the sadhana. And so what we need to understand that sadhana is like our insulation. It's like often I've said, it's like if you have diabetes, sadhana is your shot, is your insulin. You need it every day. And it's never to be minimized. This is like foundational to our bhakti. And anything that we try to achieve in Krishna consciousness, ultimately we will fail if we compromise our sadhana. Now, occasionally we compromise our sadhana because there's preaching opportunities that we need to take advantage of. But on a consistent basis, we should never compromise. And the other aspect of sadhana that's extremely important is Prabhupada's books. And recently there was a conversation, not a conversation, but a devotee was telling of an incident in which she had become a widow, and then she asked Prabhupada if she could marry again. And Prabhupada said, if you want to, you can do it, I won't stop you, but I don't recommend it. And he said, you could have problems just as you had in your first marriage. And he was explaining that we want to simplify, we want to renounce, we want to go back to Godhead. And so his preaching to her was very direct, it was very strong, what some people might nowadays even say to be fanatical, or at least they wouldn't call Prabhupada fanatical, but if someone else preached like that, they might say, wow, that's really fanatical. But Prabhupada ended the statement with something that I thought was very important for us, very powerful also. Prabhupada said, just read my books. And in that message, what I gathered was that if you're reading my books, you'll understand everything that I just told you. And you won't have these doubts. And you won't be on the mental platform, and you won't be overly attached to maybe doing something that wouldn't be the best thing for you. So this statement of just read my books, it was kind of like Prabhupada saying, just read my books. Everything's explained there, just read them, you won't have these problems. So, and I think a lot of times when we have problems, part of the reason is we're not reading Prabhupada's books regularly, because as many of you know, but hopefully all of you know, that any problem you could ever have, Prabhupada solves it in his books. But you have to study them, you have to read them. And the books get you off what we call the mental platform. So many problems that we have, they're on the mental platform. We're on the mental platform. That's what's going on. So, we do ourselves a great injustice by not regularly reading Prabhupada's books. And we make it very difficult on ourselves to be Krishna conscious, because Prabhupada's books kind of are like our ammunition through which we can traverse the enemies that are in the jungle of the material world, and there are many enemies trying to usurp our position in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada's books gives us the ability to deal with those enemies. It gives us the intelligence to understand who those enemies are, and they give us the power and the strength to go forth, even you could say, to neglect those enemies, or at least to not allow those enemies to have any influence. Just like when your body's strong, you don't get sick. When your immune system is weak, you start getting sick. And they even say that everyone has cancer cells, but when our immune system becomes weak, then the cancer cells grow. So some people even say that cancer is a disease that attacks people with weak immune systems. Anyway, that may or may not be, but using that example, you can say Maya attacks people with weak Krishna conscious immune systems. And Prabhupada's books build up our immune system against Maya. And that is why Prabhupada put so much time into writing his books and so much emphasis to sadhana, and studying his books also, and studying his books, of course, is part of that sadhana. Because here, the spiritual master, he's writing these books, and he's basically saying, I'm giving you these books. If you read them, you will be able to traverse this dangerous ocean very easily. And as the example Prahlad Maharaj gave, this big ocean, it shrinks into the size of a calf's footprint, which is not even as big as my hand. And so you have a little puddle, half the size of my hand, and you can easily cross over it. So, although we say Maya is impossible to cross over, by the grace of Prabhupada, by the grace of the Holy Name, by the grace of Prabhupada's books, it actually becomes quite easy to cross over it. Even we see great sages have difficulty, and we, Yavanas, Mlechas, residents of Kali Yuga, were able to easily cross it over by the grace of Prabhupada's words. So, please take advantage every day of those words. They will give you immense strength. Hare Krishna.